when you get to work with crew members that you really, really gel with, and that you can almost just finish each other's sentences, and you get to collaborate and go back and forth and just really talk about these things and just have fun and get to do like the really cool Western shots, the cowboy shot, how to do a shootout, how can we make the best use of our set and the space that we have to work with, and just create really cool, fun action sequences with guns. And back in those days, we were still using blanks, and which is, kind of more of a taboo thing nowadays. But sure. When I say I got to cut my teeth with these shows, this was one of those moments where I got to really, really hone my skills as a first AD, because up until that point, I had only worked with blanks just a little bit. And this was the show that really taught me what a quarter round, a half, and a full round was.
We are the
Get Reelisms Podcast.
I am Adam Chase Reddy.
And I am Christine Chen. And surprise, we're both filmmakers.
We get into it by sharing secrets, advice, and gossip in filmmaking.
And we even get our other filmmaking friends to share theirs too.
So please, everybody, join us for an
ode to filmmaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We're back. We're doing it again. Episode 151 of the Get Reelisms Podcast. I am Adam Chase Rennie.
And I am Christine Chen. And I'm so excited to introduce our special guest today, Glenn Miller. Glenn, you're going to have to introduce yourself. This is the first time we've had an AD interview an AD.
Oh, God, watch out! The enemy is here.
Yeah, you're our first AD on set besides me. So
That's
on
awesome.
set,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Glenn Miller. I'm a first AD in the film industry. I work mostly in features. I don't do shorts or commercials, unfortunately, but I do mostly TV movies of the week. Most famously known for doing the Sharknado movies. I also directed a few movies for the same company called Zombies and the Co-Ed and the Zombie Stoner. Been in the industry now for almost 20 years. But yeah, my bread and butter is basically TV movies of the week, Lifetime movies, Hallmark movies, with the occasional, big budget movie here or there that come through like once a year or so, where I get to work with a bunch of fun actors. But I get to work with fun actors all year, so it doesn't matter. It's the same thing.
Yes.
But I love my job. I love what I do. Most people hate me, but that's just my job.
That's just our job. Yes, I was in the previous episode. I was talking about how it's a rare. I came up the ranks in indie film in Texas, and by come up the ranks, I got thrown in as an AD and stayed as an AD. So I never got to really work under many people. And so it was really cool to finally work under somebody who knows their shit and is very good at it. And so that was a big learning experience for me. And it was super fun because of that, because I finally got to learn from somebody who was much better than I am. And so I like knowing how people got to where they started. So can you remember what your first film was ever? And then was it aiding?
My memory is pretty spot on when it comes to that type of stuff. So yeah, I started in the summer of 2007, I believe. Like right out of film school, I went and PA'd on a few things. I spent the summer doing that. And then I just jumped right into first ADing. And I really had no idea. I was mentoring under Jill Maxey, who was on the committee over at the DGA for the longest time. But I worked under her. She was directing. We worked for a company called BlackChristianMovies.com, and we were working out of the Sunset Gower Studios. We had an office upstairs and everything, in like the old vintage building and stuff, which was really cool. And yeah, I started to cut my teeth there and stuff. But then, like a year or two after that, I had to start figuring out what I was going to do, and I started gripping. I was a key grip for 5 years.
What?
Oh yeah, dude. I came up in G&E and I loved every minute of it. I just love sitting on Channel 7 talking shit all day. But yeah, so came up in Grip Electric, did some editing here and there. I kind of dabbled back and forth in that a little bit. And then finally, kind of right around 2010, I started to figure out that I wanted to AD And I was only ADing like 1 or 2 features a year, just some indie stuff here. There's some small horror movies or whatever. And I got a call from somebody over at the asylum saying, "Hey, we heard you AD. Would you mind coming in and picking up for another AD? We just lost our AD. Can you come in?" And that first movie over there was called Princess of Mars, which was their mockbuster of the John Carter series, I believe it was called. And it was starring Tracy Lords and Antonio Sapato Jr. And I just jumped in 2 feet first, not knowing anything. I don't even think I read the script. And I got to work with a great director named Mark Atkins, who was also DPing the show at the same time. And that was nuts. That was just crazy. That was like my first like crash course in like, they were doing bigger shows back then, but this was like my crash course on like doing kind of bigger, smaller movies, if that's even a thing. But it was fun. It was kind of cool, working with some name actors and stuff. And then it just kept going years and years and years after that. I worked with the asylum just constantly as a first AD. Basically, it was a good place to cut my teeth and kind of learn what it's like on a low budget level, how to do street closers, blowing up cars, flipping cars, doing underwater sequences, shooting in airplanes, doing a lot of green screen and visual effects stuff. And then eventually in like 2014, we started to move on to like the whole Sharknado thing. And that just skyrocketed and just took off and went crazy. I didn't get to do the first one. My friend Esther AD'd the first one, and then she couldn't make it for the second one. And then we just kind of crossed paths after that for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth one. But it was crazy. You get to do wire work, you get to do a lot of stunts, you get to do a lot of green screen, you get to do all these puppet things, the shark puppets and stuff. We got to work with Anthony C. Ferrante, who is a great friend of mine and a great director. And he's gone off and he's continued directing, and he's just going crazy doing stuff. He just did a Western a few years ago, like a 2-part Western for Tubi. That was amazing. So yeah, it was kind of cool, kind of coming up in the industry that I did. I mean, it was at the lower level, but you still got to learn a boatload of stuff. Just, green screen, visual effects, wire work, explosions, stunts, street closures, hundreds of background. It was just crazy. It was so much fun. But now I'm at a place now where I'm kind of slowing down just a little bit in my career, a little bit. I need to just kind of take my time with things, and, TV movies of the week, no problem. It pays the bills. It's fun. It's exciting. I get to meet new people. I get to travel the country because they don't just shoot here in LA all the time. Those TV movies of the week like to shoot in places like Kentucky, Mississippi, Connecticut, South Carolina, Tennessee. So I get to get in my car sometimes and just travel the country, or I just get on a flight, and I love every minute of my job. It's amazing.
On your first one, did you have like a oopsies moment, like, oh shit, I'm a little in over my head, but let's play it cool? What do you remember? Any specific moments like that?
Definitely, probably with the Princess of Mars movie with Tracy Lords and Antonio Sabato Jr. I had only done mostly like indie features up until that point. And that was kind of like indie features, like are kind of more like sometimes it can be like student films, where it's like a crew of like 8 people. And doing my first asylum show, which was, like I said, they were doing much bigger shows back then. They were doing like 15, 16-day movies, sometimes 18-day movies. And they had trailers and honey wagons and all these things and all the trucks. And there was just a lot more cast and crew and a bigger budget to work with. And I remember walking on set going, oh, wow, this is like big. This is like bigger. It was still very much at a pace, at a fast pace of like, doing an indie mom and pop funded movie. But it just had more toys, more gadgets, more things to do, more things to play with and stuff. But I just remember going, wow, I'm working on a movie with trailers and trucks and all this stuff. This is cool. And now it's just like, I'll be lucky if I get to work on a backlot now. But I've done that too and stuff. And that was also exciting. I still get starstruck. Anytime I walk onto a bigger show that has, all the gadgets and all the toys, and, you have a G&E department of like, 15 people, whatever. 2 or 3 cameras, and you're getting driven to set on in a golf cart, and you're on a back lot, and you're working over at like Golden Oak Ranch. Golden Oak Ranch, for anybody that doesn't know, is the Disney Ranch here in California, and that's where a lot of shows get to shoot. And they have everything. They have all the fake houses that you see in the most commercials that you see. Like all those Geico commercials, they shoot on the Golden Oak Ranch all the time and stuff, and I recognize all the houses. And then they have a huge like downtown backlot that everybody likes to shoot at and stuff. Disney shoots a lot of stuff there. Marvel movies will shoot there and stuff, and they also do the Warner Brothers backlot too as well. So
why ADing and not G&E?
Because a funny part about that was I kind of got tired of watching everybody go home at the end of the day, and me still loading the truck and putting all the equipment in the truck.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there hauling all this heavy equipment back onto the truck and stuff, and there goes the director and the DP and the AD.
Thanks for everything today. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Turn around
Good
in 3
job,
hours.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I had a natural act for kind of just commanding the room. In my early 20s, after I graduated high school, I got a full-time job at a place called Discovery Zone, which was kind of like the indoor Chuck E. Cheese. It was like an indoor playground for kids, but it was kind of like, it was also like the mockbuster of Chuck E. Cheese. But it had, like 200 stores nationwide, whatever. And I got to work at like 2 of the biggest stores in the corporation, one over in Burbank and the other one over in West Hills. But the biggest one was the one in Hawaii. But in that type of situation, you get field trips of kids coming in, and you're hosting birthday parties. And it was kind of just the natural progression for going and dealing, and wrangling a bunch of kids to going and wrangling a bunch of crew and herding cats on set. So it was kind of just, like I said, just like the natural progression. It was like, well, I already know how to command the space and kind of wrangle up people and be the ringmaster, if you will. And it was kind of in my blood, just kind of to be the center of attention and be the kind of the asshole on set to push people around and tell people what's going on. I also have a big voice. I have a loud, booming voice that people can hear. Even when I try to be quiet, people are like, and I'm just like, rah, rah, rah. So yeah, it took a while to get my footing in the industry and kind of learn, because I did learn under a few people. Tommy Cook was another one of my mentors who I got to learn under, and he went off to go work on Fear Factor. And he's a good friend of mine, and I still talk to him like at least maybe once a year or so. And again, like I said, Jill Maxey, who ended up being an AD on American Horror Story and Glee. My 2 mentors got to go off and do some of the most amazing stuff, and still are doing some of the most amazing work of their careers. So I'm hoping that I can still follow in their footsteps and join them eventually someday on set, and they can be my boss. But yeah, I love my job.
Yeah. Well, what's your biggest fuck up?
My biggest fuck up. Some of my biggest fuck ups, and this still happens to this day, and it's just one of those things that happens. And I'm actually supposed to be talking to a friend of mine. I was another person that I've been kind of mentoring, if you will. One of my second ADs is now firsting, and she ran into a situation where the day out of days, this is the cast day out of days. It's basically the schedule. It's a spreadsheet for people that don't know. It's a spreadsheet for showing the actors when they work and when they don't work throughout the schedule of the show, what days they have off and what days they're working. And I think she may have done it recently, and I've done it myself. I do it maybe like once a year, but I have somebody come and spot check my work. But basically, I'll have an actor that's either supposed to come in, that's not supposed to come in, or an actor that's not supposed to come in. I think I'm saying this right.
Yeah.
So yeah, when an actor is not supposed to work that day, and I have them scheduled to work, or the vice versa, the other way around, and somebody will come up to me and go, "Hey, Glenn, you've got Billy Joe coming in on Tuesday. They're not supposed to work that day. They're not in any of those scenes." And I'll take a look at it and go, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. That's a rollover from a previous schedule or a previous draft of the script, or it's just an oversight on my part. I just didn't see that, going in or whatever. And I'll own up to that. I won't deflect. There's a lot of people that kind of like will play the blame game and blame somebody else, whatever. I will always own up to my mistakes when it comes to that type of stuff, especially when it comes to the scheduling part. Because the hard part about my job is that you don't get the luxury of having all the time in the world to make the perfect schedule. You come close. You come very, very close to creating the perfect schedule, but there are going to be moments where you do mess up and have those mistakes, and everybody sees it, which is unfortunate. But it's not something that just kind of slides under the radar just a little bit. We're like, oh, cool, nobody saw that. No, everybody sees it because that schedule gets distributed throughout the entire cast and to everyone, the entire cast and crew. And for those paying attention to the schedule, they will see it. But
Yes.
luckily, not everybody pays attention. So
Yes, and for those who are in the industry, dude, it's also called dude, DOOD,
Yeah.
as an abbreviation. But that's not bad. That's not a bad fuck. I mean, yeah, it happens. But like,
Yeah.
do you remember when you were? Because I feel like all ADs get fired at some point. Do you remember when you got fired?
I got one that show that sticks out. I got fired as a second AD, and now listen, this is where things get a little political between the first ADs and the second ADs of the industry. But
Sure.
a good second AD does not want to be a first AD. Only wants to be a second AD because
Right.
they find themselves better at paperwork than being on set and maybe be a little socially awkward and don't mesh well being the center of attention and commanding the set. Where I like to be the center of attention. I like to command the set. I like to know everything that's going on. I like to be that ringmaster and multitasking and saying, oh, the camera's going over here, the actors are over here getting ready for whatever. So I got fired on a movie. The working title was called The Last Stand. I think it ended up being called Zombie Apocalypse. It was a movie with Ving Rhames and a few other name actors that I can't remember at this time. But I remember it was 4th of July. We were about a week or two into the show when I was the second AD, and I was just dropping the ball. I was dropping the ball like crazy. I wasn't signing out the actors at the right time of the day. I didn't get the call sheet out at the right time. The call sheet had mistakes on it. I'm just not good at the whole paperwork part with the call sheets and stuff. So my line producer, who was a friend of mine at the time, basically gave me a call and said, hey, yeah, we're gonna have to let you go. And I was like, thank God. I was so relieved. I was so happy to be let go from that because up until that point, it was just so stressful, and I was just pulling my hair out every day, sitting in this trailer, making this call sheet that I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
If you put me on set, and I actually got to run set for just a few minutes on that show, I was back in my element for those few minutes. But then I had to go back to the trailer once the first AD came back to set, and it was terrible. I was just dropping the ball. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was so relieved to be fired. And I was like, oh, thank God I got fired from that. And it was on 4th of July, so as I'm driving home, I see fireworks going off everywhere. It was pretty cool. So.
It was yay, Glenn got fired.
It's a really good point you brought up, Glenn, because like I didn't think about it till right now that like because like you're right, like really good second ADs ideally are not really looking forward to actually being in a first AD. But you also see the opposite of that too, right? Like you see that the first ADs are like, I don't want to be no pencil pusher. Are you fucking kidding me? Like I don't want to be stuck in a fucking trailer all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're the few rare crew that actually do well going back and forth between second and first AD. I know a guy, Buzz Hughes. He can go back and forth between second and firsting, and I think he's just conditioned himself to do that over the years. I'm just not that person. I can't. I'm getting older now, and I'm getting set in my ways to the point where I'm like, first ADing is give me the script, give me the days, give me the rate, and I tell me what day I start working. I start breaking down the script. I create a schedule. I collaborate with the producers and the director about the schedule. We go back and forth. We move some things around. We distro the schedule. we start shooting the movie. It's just there's certain bullet points you have to hit before you start shooting the movie and stuff. And that's kind of how I've trained myself over the years now. As a first, there's just a way to do it. And yeah, I don't know. Going back and forth between the two, I would pull my hair out.
Yeah.
Because you got to be
I'm
go
learning
ahead. Sorry.
to. Go ahead. No. I'm learning to appreciate it. I was very much earlier in the boat where I had to be on set. It would drive me up the wall being in the PO production office, because it felt like I was getting everybody ready for school, and then I got to stay home while everybody else was having fun, and it was very depressing. So, but now
First one in, last one out.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. First one in, last one. Yeah, but now I'm starting to be like, okay, well, the stress, because the stress significance between the first and the second is like it's day and night, in my opinion. Like, when you're a first, you don't have time even to pee sometimes, and when you're a second, it's a lot different. The stress is more, I feel, emotional and political, because they're dealing with people's needs, like very people who are used to being catered towards needs. So that's it's just dealing with people from that aspect. But crew for the most part, they know when they get on that there's so many other good crew, and if you're not going to play well or do your job well, like especially in LA, you get replaced like this. You know, cast is different. They know that there's no two Tom Cruises, so they can do where the fuck they want. So then you have to like learn and like delicately navigate that situation. So it's more of like a people thing. But yeah, for a very long time I hated seconding. Although recently I'm like, you know what? I don't mind this non-stress. It's lower stress feel
Really?
and everything.
It
So
seems like you would be
I-
the one who just needs to be like Glenn. You just need to be out there, just fucking.
yeah, but I think the reason is because my goal having come here was always to direct. So I never really wanted to be a career AD. I was just really good at
Right.
it.
Right.
So now I'm like, okay, well, I get all the people ready and stuff like that. And like, I have this time where I can, you know, do some stuff that's my career things. You know, you just have a lot of you have downtime. You have zero. There's zero down. There's negative downtime as a first AD, like negative,
Yeah, there's nothing.
basically.
I could barely, like you said, I could barely step away just to go 10-1 to go to the restroom, or even
Right.
make myself a cup of coffee, or go to the crafty table.
Yeah.
I mean, most times, most shows, often, I will go straight from the safety meeting to set, and I will be on set all day. And then when I find that moment where it's like, oh, we have a 20-30 minute costume, hair, makeup change for the actors, it's like, okay, fine, let's start setting up. And then I'll call Christine or whoever I have on set with me. Hey, can you cover me real quick? I need to go get something. And I'll call over the walkie. Hey guys, where's Crafty? Because I have no idea.
Yeah. Half the
where
time you don't know
Crafty
where
is.
it is.
Um,
Yeah, you don't know
yeah,
where it is. You don't know what's there. Yeah. And also it's like it's such a mommy daddy thing. Like, okay, daddy is left. Let's
yep.
just fuck around now. Like it's the
Hard.
even when you have somebody that represents you there, unless they're also a strong AD, but like they're the it's just the crew knows. They just know. They're like, oh, cool. Well, we're just gonna take our time.
Yeah, it's funny, and I've done that a few times in the last year where I've had to leave set and I left somebody else in charge, and then I come back and it's just a party. Everybody's hanging out. Everybody's hanging out. They're telling stories or whatever and stuff, and I'm like, what's going on? And usually the person that I leave in charge to kind of cover me as I leave, knows, okay, well, the camera's going over here, the actors are going to walk in, whatever and stuff. But there are other times, when I'm working on some of those, those movies of the week and stuff, and I'm working with, people with a little less experience and stuff. I'll say, okay, so what's going on right now and stuff. They're like, well, we're just waiting for actors, I think. And then I find out that there's more things that are happening. And then the DP comes to me and is like, so what are we waiting on right now? And I'm like, okay, so things kind of fell apart when I left set. Copy that.
Right.
I know, it's a party. It literally is. Like you come on, everybody just like, okay, dad's home. So let's do our jobs now. Yeah, but always happens, no matter what. You leave somebody else on set in charge. That's why before I leave, I go, when I come back from the restroom, these 5 things have to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I try to relay that information and stuff when I step off and stuff. I'll go, okay, so camera's going over here. The actors are going to walk in. They're going to sit down. They're going to talk. And then they're going to take their food and they're going to walk out of the room and stuff. But we have this setup. And then after this setup, we're supposed to come around to the wraparound and get a close up over here or whatever and stuff. And pretty much I try to relay as much information that I have because I don't always get all the information because we're all just kind of running gun on the
Mhm.
fly, shooting and making
Do,
movies.
do you have a favorite set that you worked on and why?
Favorite set? Oh gosh. Um, that is a tough one because I have a lot of favorites. I
Or
I've
t-
gotten
or
to,
or
okay,
your top ones. Your top ones. It doesn't have to be
my
the one.
okay. There's one that stands out, and this is an older show that I did almost 15 years ago. I think it was a western.
Damn,
It's
you're
called.
old.
I know it's crazy.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
so I did a western about 15 years ago. This was this was my second asylum show, and it was a movie called Six Guns, and I got to work with the Van Dyke kids. This is Dick Van Dyke's direct son, Barry Van
Wow.
Dyke, and I got to work with Barry Van Dyke's kids, Shane and Carrie Van Dyke, and we all did this western. We shot like a week here in L.A. and then we shot out to Yucca Valley where they have this amazing western set, and we shot out there for another week, and it was just balls to the walls fun. It was a western. I mean, there wasn't a lot of like the carriages and the the runaway train and all that kind of stuff, but it was horses, good guys, bad guys, bounty hunter, damsel in distress, a saloon, a shootout. It was so much fun. I still reference this show to this day when people ask me, what was the most fun you had on the show? It was Six Guns. Back then, it was called Gunslinger. Um, but we had just the best time. The director of photography, the DP, Alex Yellen, and I, we collaborated, and we just became, we had this huge bromance on set. And that's also another fun part too, is when you get to work with crew members that you really, really gel with, and that you can almost just finish each other's sentences, and you get to collaborate and go back and forth and just really talk about these things and just have fun and get to do like the really cool Western shots, the cowboy shot, and, you know, just how to do a shootout, how can we make the best use of our set and the space that we have to work with and just create really cool, fun action sequences with guns. And back in those days, we were still using blanks, um,
Mhm.
and which is kind of more of a taboo thing nowadays. But
Sure.
when I say I got to cut my teeth with these shows, this was one of those moments where I got to really, really hone my skills as a first AD because up until that point, I had only worked with blanks just a little bit. And this was the show that really taught me what a quarter round, a half, and a full round was. And for those of you that don't know, a quarter round gives you a little bang, and a full round gives you a really loud bang.
Mm.
Um, and we didn't have any live rounds on that show. We didn't have any real bullets. Um, but it was just exciting. It was fun. I do have a video on YouTube. You can look it up. I think it was blocking. I think it's called Six Guns, or I think it might be called Gunslinger blocking out the scene or something like that. And it basically shows me and the DP running around acting out all the parts and kind of just like pretending to do camera angles with my little home camera I had at the time. I had like a little HD cam, and we just went around and just kind of like storyboarded or did like a live animatic of it. And we shot what you see in that video on YouTube is basically shot for shot how we shot this finale of the film, and it was great. It was so much fun just running around, and we were on location. We got to have fun at night, and go and have dinners and drinks with the cast and crew and stuff. So it was just a great time working on that show.
Is it common for an AD to block out, like, to, from a creative aspect, be able to determine some of the shots with the DP? Because isn't that technically the director? and stuff?
It mostly is. It really is. It is a collaboration between the director and the DP. And when most shows that I work on, I will stand back and I will just kind of follow along like a shadow and follow the director and the DP while they talk about the shots and they talk about
Right.
the blocking or whatever and stuff. And then there are some cases where the director is a little bit more hands off and just wants to work with just the actors and lets the
Mm,
DP and the AD kind of like, figure out what the shot and the coverage and whatever and stuff. It really is just kind of every show is different. But yes, the standard is the DP and the director will go around and block out the shots based on the blocking that they just saw. But there is a very small, rare occurrence where the director will be just a little bit more hands off and want to just focus on the acting and the performance while the
Right.
while the DP and the first AD kind of figure out how to shoot the shots or whatever and stuff. So yeah, and that's kind of the fun part where I get to step in and I'm like, oh, I get to be creative. I get to
yeah.
I get to step in and put my little stamp on it or whatever and stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I stand back and just kind of crack the whip and go, come on, guys, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go, we got to make the day.
I can't imagine because I've never worked on a set that used blanks. Because when did they start? When did they officially say like most things not use blanks and everything? Uh oh, happened. I just got off
So,
for some reason. My get realism
Oh,
was kicking me
Christine
off.
is off the
Live.
Instagram live.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm like,
well, we'll see here
oh,
on
yeah.
Facebook, but I actually have a question for you, Glenn. Talking about blanks and all this, like, I don't know if you have a 2 cents into, at least with the situation with Rust, and maybe this was kind of like a perfect example of everything wrong, from top down between safety and regulations and unfortunately, like, that set had live rounds on that shoot. Um, is because then there's also the Brendan Lee thing too, decades ago. Does
yeah.
how do you foresee, like, I mean, I guess it's hard to foresee it, but like, what do you think in terms of like the way that the industry is now moving towards? Does this feel like it's like Rust was like the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of like, no more
It
blanks,
really was.
we're not
Yeah.
doing anything? Like, what's your 2 cents onto all that?
So coming up in an industry that still use blanks and working on it, I have done a show where we did do live rounds, which was kind of weird and unfortunate because I didn't know about it until the day of. But we're not going
Wow.
to talk about that show. Yeah, it was crazy. I did it was very safe. In the way that we did it, it was very very safe, and we had some of the best armors in the industry on that show. Um, but again, yeah, there's always room for error and all that stuff. So I feel that we've come to a day and age now where we don't need blanks. Now,
Right.
there are two arguments about using blanks because using blanks, it gives you more of a realistic effect. As an actor, I understand when you're shooting, you don't want to go pew pew, because that's your natural response. And I've done that show recently. I did a World War II movie like 2 years ago, where the actor literally said pew pew while they were shooting the gun. There's a great outtake somewhere. Um, but yeah, we've come to a point now where you can just do it. You can do it safer, and it's quicker to just do visual effects. And I know there's two parties. There's one side that says no. There's another side that says yes. Whatever. Coming from an AD's perspective, safety first. Always be safe. And coming from an actor's perspective, I understand that it's just better using blanks because you get the realism of shooting a gun and having it, a little kickback and the dust flying out of the gun or whatever and stuff. But we've just gotten careless. I think we've gotten careless, and it's the experience of people trying to cut corners budget wise or whatever, or just and hiring inexperienced people in positions that they shouldn't be in, really. And like I said, I've seen this. I grew up in this industry using blanks, and we've had some of the most professional armors on those shows working very, very closely with the actors to always point the gun down. Never point the gun up like this. Never point the gun out. Always have the gun pointed down until you're ready to shoot. And then when you're ready to shoot, point. And also, if you're when you're using blanks, don't point the gun directly at the actor's face. I've actually seen that moment happen on a set where they shot blanks at the actor's face,
Yeah.
and all the dust that came out of the gun got into the actor's eyes.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
So I mean, the actor was fine, but it's a lot of dust and powder that comes out of the gun, and it got into the actor's eyes, and I've seen that happen, and it's just, and also there's another thing too. I've seen horses get scared by blanks too. There's
Right.
not only just the bullet factor of things. There's also, using blanks on a set. It's loud, and if you're working on a Western, which is mostly what blanks are used for, you can scare the horse. And I've seen horses get scared and run. I've seen them run and take off with the buggy in hand and stuff, with actors still in the buggy or whatever and stuff. I wasn't the first AD during that time. I was just a grip. But I've seen it, and it's scary. It's very scary. And my job as the first AD, and as you've seen with the other first AD from Rust, you're held accountable for the safety. And I pride myself on weapon safety on set, especially on these little movies of the week, on the small, low budget movies of the week movies that I work on mostly. We don't always have an armor. But we will have guns because, the finale of the movies always have to have some sort of gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that we move away from that stuff because guns actually kind of freak me out. I remember shooting a real gun when I was a kid, but I haven't gone to a shooting range. I haven't actually shot a real gun. And I'd probably say at least 25, 30 years. Because they're scary. They're very scary. To me, they're scary. They're just, you see it on the news with gun violence and stuff, and mass shootings or whatever. I want to steer clear and far away from any sort of real gun situation if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
But I will do a weapons check as a first AD. I always do a separate weapon safety check every time there's a gun, whether it be rubber, plastic, or metal. I will always do a weapons check. If we don't have an armor, I will host the meeting myself. And I have my own personal spiel that I've memorized, and I say it all the time. I will take the weapon in question. I will hold it out for everybody. I will talk about the weapon. I will talk about whether or not it's metal, whether or not it has a firing pin or not, whether or not it's metal, plastic, or rubber. I will make it available for all the crew to take a look at and look down the chamber or take a look at the clip. Most times we get airsoft guns. We'll get like plastic airsoft guns that look very real.
Yeah.
But they also have a clip, and I know how to use the gun and everything. I know how to pull out the clip. I know how to retract the gun so you can look down the barrel and everything.
Right.
But there's a new thing now where, like, if you're actually show the crew the weapon and the crew members to take the gun and take a look down now that crew member is also liable.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't think people think about that. But once you let another crew member take a look at the gun in question or whatever and stuff before it gets handed off to the actor, that crew member now too is also become liable.
Mm.
So it's tricky and it sucks, and I just wish we didn't have to run into these types of situations. But every couple of years, something happens in this industry that helps us evolve and keeps our sets safe. The Sarah Jones thing and stuff started up a whole nother thing on set safety and stuff. There are still a lot of questionable things that happens on sets today. Free driving is a very, very questionable thing, and I am a firm advocate against putting the camera in the front seat with an operator with the front seat while the car is driving practically for real. There's so many things, and I've gotten into fights with other crew members on other sets where that becomes an issue. And I'm like, why are we even questioning the safety of our actors and our crew by putting a camera in the front seat with an operator when you don't know what could happen. A car could pull out in front of you. You may have to hit the brakes. All of a sudden, a car in front of you stops, and then the airbag deploys, and it just becomes a whole mess. I'm sweating talking about this just because it's such a heated
Yeah,
situation for me. Well, because I'm the
totally.
guy in charge of the safety of the set, and I don't want those things to happen. I never want to see a crew member get hurt or anything like that. It makes me sad thinking about that, the possibilities of crew members. I mean, we just had something recently. There was something that happened with a crew member who did something that it was on set. I don't really want to get into the details, but I think if everybody's been following the most recent news in the film industry, there was a recent suicide on,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's just sad because that's the pressures of our film industry to do the best that you can and whatever. And there's a lot of screamers and a lot of bullies still on movie sets. Some people will say I'm one of them. But I try to keep my movie sets um, fun and lively, and but also doing my job at the same time, and keeping it safe. It's just we got to
Yeah.
keep our sets safe, and the whole run and gun and the whole backyard filmmaking of just doing everything on their own. That's how people get hurt, when you
Totally.
don't have the right people in place, and especially when you don't have anybody looking out for people's safety. It's
No.
just sad. And also the Rust situation is very personal for me because I was actually shooting a Western right down the street from that set. I was in
In
New
Santa
Mexico when
Fe?
that happened. I was in Santa Fe when that happened.
Wow.
So yeah, in October of 2021, I was actually there. We were right down the street shooting another Western, which I had mentioned earlier. And we had blanks on that set as well.
Right.
And it was terrible. We saw the Black Hawk helicopter fly overhead, and then about 5-10 minutes later, we saw the Black Hawk helicopter fly back over again over our set, and we said, "Huh, I wonder what's going on." And within the next hour, we had U.S. Marshals and police and paparazzi showing up on our set, asking us if we had anything to say about what had happened down the street. And we were like, "What just happened down the street?" And that's when we found out that there had been an accident on the Rust set
Holy
and stuff.
shit.
So,
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. So I actually have a very, very personal connection to the Rust incident. And so that's why I take gun and weapon safety on my sets very, very seriously.
Well, yeah, that's the other part of it too, is that like because I work in art department on mostly indie projects like short films and shorts or features and stuff like that. And there was one occasion, I think I told Christine this on the pod before, but there was one occasion where like we had an armor on set, but there was no I mean, there were dummies. There were dummies, the ones that don't fire off at all. And the one rule that this armorer had, including the first AD, who was the safety coordinator on that shoot as well, don't point your gun at anybody. Like, no matter what, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Even if it's a dummy round, nothing would happen. You still do not point it at. And this was like a kid, probably like 19 or 20, and this kid just kept fucking pointing the guns at like other crew members and cast, and he got a first strike from the first AD, and the first AD was like, "You cannot do this. This is unacceptable," yada yada. And then he did it again when the first AD 10-1. It talk about like the moment the ADs run off the set, shit just goes sideways. So first AD leaves the set, and then the armor clocks the kid immediately. And I saw him like walk up to him, and the kid handed the armor back the gun and everything, and he walked off a set. And armor came back, and I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "Oh, I fired him." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I fired him. He's not working on the shoot anymore." I'm like, "Well, did you tell Keith that, the first AD? Did you tell the first AD that?" And he was like, "No, I supersede that no matter what. I don't give a shit. Like, he's out. Like, he keeps pointing it at other crew members. He pointed it at a child actor who was there on that set. Like, this is unacceptable." You just don't do that. Even with dummies,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
yeah. That's unfortunate. When you have somebody that's not going to listen or has their own agenda, or just wants to play around and have fun or be
Yeah.
the center of attention
But
or
we were
whatever.
already like 5 days in, which is crazy. It was like 5 days in, and we had the one stunt day where we had guns and whatnot. And the armor was only a day player, so the armor came in. He was like, "This is unfucking acceptable. No way, not
Yeah.
not in my
Yeah.
house." And he was gone. I'm like, shit, wow. The
Yeah.
amount of power
Yeah,
you can have.
It's unfortunate that people still just no matter how many times you tell them they want to wave the gun around or whatever and stuff. And I'm usually really really good about that, like guys. And even during my speech when I do a weapons check and a safety check and stuff, I always say that this is not a toy. You do
Right.
not point this at other people. When I give this to the actor, you're going to point it down or keep it in your holster. Usually, because I do the TV movies of the week, it's usually a detective or a cop that has the gun.
Right.
Every so often, the bad guy will get the gun, and I do the same speech over and over. This is not a toy. Treat this as if it were a real weapon. Always point it down or hand it off to me. If you're not going to use it, if you don't need it, hand it off to me, or I will hand it back off to the armor or the art department, whoever's responsible for this weapon. But don't let anybody else touch this. Don't let anybody else use this. Don't wave this around. Don't point this at people. It's not a toy. And yeah, I'm very very strict about weapon safety and guns on set, and there's no excuse for that. And I'm glad that happened, because that what you were mentioning on your show, people need to stand up and say things about that type of stuff, especially when it comes to people's safety. This isn't fun and games. It's yeah, we like what we do and we have a good time doing it and stuff, but it is still business. It is show business, and you got to treat it as such. And yeah, keeping people safe on set, that is the biggest and first foremost thing. You got to make and keep people comfortable too. You don't just sit there and wave a gun around like that. That just creates just a bad atmosphere for the cast, crew. People get uncomfortable, especially if there's a child on set.
Ugh.
The kid's going to get uncomfortable, or even the parents. The parents will get uncomfortable and they'll be like, "This guy's waving this gun around like it's a toy. Come on."
No, yeah, it gets to the point where it's like we're making pretend. We're not trying to, we're having fun. We don't want, like, because once people start like waving guns around and start playing with it, it's like you said too, right? It's like even in the environment too, like if you're free driving, and you have your camera in the car, the camera's an expensive piece of equipment. Don't fuck with it, and don't slam on the brakes so your Ari Alexa just goes through the windshield. So, just
Right.
like be careful with it. But way more importantly, the operators and everyone in that car, including the director, I guess like wherever, right? It's just like the last thing you want is anything to happen to you, because we're all just playing pretend. Nobody should die over this. It doesn't make any sense, as long as you run the proper safety protocols and whatnot. And, like the case has been like kind of up and down with like, I felt like I knew this Russ case like backwards and forwards, because I saw it all in real time with like court TV and like showing all the live trials and all that. It's such a wild thing to see, like such disinterest in safety and just flagrant, like just unapologetically like unsafe. Like from there was also discharges too that happened a few days prior, actually several discharges that happened on that shoot, and one of them being the prop master, which why would the prop master have the gun in their hands is beyond me. But yeah, there was a discharge weapon even from art department respectively. So yeah, and then the first AD did not check the gun at all and let the gun just go fucking freewheeling it, and then Alec pulled the trigger, and yeah, unfortunately the DP lost her life over something that is so innocuous to everyone else, right? Like, we always check our shit. We always, cross our T's and dot our I's. But that one fucking moment, that one moment is just
Mm-hmm.
that what's costed it all. It's just it's not worth it. Not worth it.
And here's my two things about that. Just real briefly, just
Sure.
about that situation with that particular moment on set. In that very moment, there are two things. It was a rehearsal.
Right.
And when you're doing a rehearsal, you shouldn't have anything in the chambers. There should be nothing, whether it be a 6-shooter or whatever, there should be nothing in that gun at all for a rehearsal. Okay. A blank, a whatever, a dummy round, whatever.
Should be empty.
There should be nothing in there
Yeah.
for a rehearsal. Okay. And also, yeah, I mean, what were live rounds doing on that set anyway?
Right.
But yeah, I know I said I had two things, but I don't remember what the second one was. But I mean, like, it's straight up, it was a rehearsal.
Mhm.
Okay. Give him a rubber gun. And if the actor says, well, no, I want to feel what the real gun feels like, then fine. Open up the chamber, make sure there's nothing in it, then hand it off to him and say, gun is clear, clean weapon, clear weapon, cold weapon, whatever,
Yeah.
however you want to say it. And just hand it off and make sure you check it. I do that every single time. When the gun is not in the actor's hands, I hold it myself because I'm the only person that I trust most of the time. On the smaller shows that don't have armorers. If there's a professional armor, yes, it goes off to the armor. The armor is responsible for it. Okay. But when it goes between the armor and the actor, I want to make sure that I see it. Open it up for me. Let me see it before you hand it off. I don't care if the actor's in the moment. He's in the moment. He's in the moment. Give him the gun. Give him the gun. Hold on a second. Slow down. Because that's how people get hurt.
Right. Absolutely. And there was a ton of that throughout this shoot. And yeah, it's just like going back to what you said though earlier. And I know you were making a joke about, like, 80s being assholes and loud and all this time, but I've been on shoots where there's no AD, and that drives me up a wall because the schedule's all out the fucking window. We're so far behind on time. Nobody tells me when I should be setting up because I'm waiting for G&E. I'm waiting for camera, or, vice versa. They're waiting on me and they don't know when I'm done or when I'm finished. And then, it's just like all these things go all over the place. And as much as people want to clown on the first ADs on, like, they're just a bunch of loud, obnoxious douches. It's like, yeah, well, the moment that you don't have a first AD is going to be the moment you're like, fuck, I wish somebody's yelling at a bunch of people.
Hour 16. Yes, we're going really overtime.
Yeah, I'm on the
time.
13th hour and I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore.
Yeah, no, and see, and that's the thing. It's like cutting corners and saying, "Oh, we don't need a first. We can do this. It's only, we're only doing 12 pages today. Whatever and stuff." You need somebody that can sit there and have an objective look and step back and look at the entire set and watch what G&E is doing, and watch what the camera department's doing, and watching what the art department's doing, and being able to clock each one of those departments. Sound department, okay, they need 5 minutes to wire the actor. All these things, you need one person on set that can watch all those things, because the director is in charge of, making sure that it's getting the right shot and the performance, whatever. The DP's focused on the lighting and the exposure and the dolly track or whatever and stuff. Everybody has a job, and if you don't have a first AD on your show that is there to make sure that you're on time and the clock is running and what are we waiting on? What are we waiting on? It's like you have somebody there that knows exactly what you're waiting on and knows how to time management your day.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind when I hear about those shows that don't have first, which I don't hear many. But yeah, in the indie world and stuff where it's like the first time director, they're using, they're maxing out their credit cards or whatever and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I hear about it all the time and stuff. And I'm like, this is how you learn. You learn. You have to learn from your mistakes. I always say that to most crew members, but the only way you're going to learn is from your mistakes. You can sit on an Apple box all day in the G&E department and watch other people make mistakes, and you can learn from that. That's how I did it. When I was a key grip for 5 years and stuff, I used to sit on an Apple box all day and watch other people work and go, God, I'm never going to do that when I get there. Nope. Oh, that was good. That's a good idea. That's fun, yeah, I learned a lot as a key grip.
Yeah. You're just, because like you said,
But
you're just there like as an outside like perspective of just seeing it like zoomed out. Yeah, you notice these things, and like, yeah, that's what I see in a first AD as well. Like a good first AD that would communicate everything. It would just be like, okay, art's flying in, let's wait, and then, camera will then set up, and then, yada yada. Like it just goes, the set just makes it just go by that much easier and that much faster, regardless of how I feel about first ADs. Especially like I've had first ADs yell at me, and that's a normal ass day, and I don't take any, I don't get sensitive about it. I've been yelled at before. I'm not made of peaches and cream here. I'm not sensitive, but like, yeah, there's a time and a place for all this, and the moment that time gets the best of you, and it does for every shoot, because you realize after 6 or 7 hours that the daylight seems to be going by really fast. That's crazy. It'll be like small shit like that, and having that first AD makes all of the fucking difference, like 100%. So anybody who's wants to yell at first ADs, they'll remember this. They'll remember this
Yes.
as much as I remember it.
Yeah, because the whole thing is a first AD allows the luxury for other departments to be able to hyper focus on their jobs. But because of that, we hyper focus on the time to be able to parse out that time so that you guys
Exactly.
can get home safely at a reasonable time. Otherwise, you can hyper focus and lose the sense of time, because that's what happens when you
oh
hyper
yeah, you
focus.
stand around and you talk. You start telling stories. You start showing videos on your phone, and then all of a sudden, everybody's just not making the movie anymore. Everybody's just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So
I will even say too, like working with Christine, like I've worked with Christine when she was a first AD, and we always had good turnaround days. We never had days where it would be like we would get home and it would be like 3 hours of sleep, and then I have to fucking book it every. Christine was like one of the only ADs that I've worked with, except for like maybe one or two, but like that manages their time appropriately and make sure that like we're all gonna get out at the time that we
That's
need
a
to
good
leave.
first. That's a good first, and that's a good first who's also looking out for their crew. That's a good first. That's like they know what it's like to be in that position and having shitty turnarounds.
Yeah.
And that's why in Christine, I think, was with me on the last week of this last show that we worked on together, where it was like, well, we're not going to get out until like 11 o'clock. What time are we going to make our call? Because originally we were supposed to have like a 9 a.m. call the next day. And I said, we're going to push the call. We're going to push the call. Yes, I know that union rules that most departments only need a 10-hour turnaround, but we're not going to do that. Okay.
Right.
We're not going to run into a situation where somebody falls asleep at the wheel and all that stuff. We got to get away from that style of filmmaking and that type of just crew abuse, of pushing crew to the point where they drive home after 16 hours and they fall asleep at the wheel. Or
Yeah.
it's also when you get into like the 14th hour and you're rush, and you're go, go, go. All of a sudden, Grip Electric is trying to set a light and it falls because they didn't secure it properly, because they were either tired or they were being rushed or whatever and stuff. We just got to get away from that type of filmmaking. It's unsafe. It's not fun, because then you don't want to come back the next day. You just want to stay home. You don't want to have anything to do with that show. So yeah, it is really, it takes a good first AD and a good production team too to agree that yes, we are not going to come back after 10 hours. We're going to give everybody a full turnaround, and that's what makes Christine there a team player when it comes to working in the movies and stuff, and really looking out for the cast and the crew.
So since I'm also an AD, since we're coming up on our time, could you give us your one tip for anybody who was trying to get into the industry? What your biggest advice would be to your next big life goal that you have in your career, and anything else you want to end on to inspire the masses?
Tell the people,
I'm
Glenn.
gonna flip. Yeah, I'm gonna flip flop those two things there.
You bet.
So that I can end on the inspiring note. So the first thing I started directing a few years back, probably about 10 years ago. I started directing feature films, and I was doing like maybe one a year. I kind of strayed away from that, and I just kept with my day job as a first AD. I'd really like to get back into directing again. I really love directing. I had a lot of fun when I was doing these creature features for the asylum called Zombies. I had a great time. We had a spin-off movie. The movies did so well. We actually had a spin-off called Aquarium of the Dead, which is, yes, it's like, a theme park gone awry.
Love that.
But yeah, it's I'd like to get back more into directing. I think I'm going to finish out 2024 with just my day job and probably start to focus on more directing for 2025 because I will be an old man by then. And I really want to pursue my passion more as a director and get away from the first ADing thing. But right now I'm firsting and I love it. I will leave on this note, and this is the thing that I always tell everybody. Every time I do a seminar or I do, some sort of sit down with people and stuff, I always say this to aspiring filmmakers and anybody in the film industry: no matter how hard it gets, never give up. I'm about to turn 50, and I've been in this film industry for 20 years now. I started late, and I didn't get into the film industry until I was in my early 30s, I think. I went back to college at like 26 and stuff, and I started really, really late. And I was kind of on my own because I didn't have any friends. I was the oldest guy in class. Everybody else had just gotten out of high school. I was like 26, 27 years old. So I kind of went through film school and college by myself. And I just fought. I just kept going and going and going. And then once I got into the film industry, I realized how hard it can be to with the competition. There are other people out there that are better than you at the job or better suited for the job. Or there's also the political hire situation where you get overlooked because somebody's friend, cousin, nephew, whatever is associated or related to somebody higher up than you. So you get overlooked. There are a lot of really, really hard things about this film industry, but don't give up. Just don't give up. If you're an actor, if you're a crew member, if you're an aspiring director, writer, producer, focus puller, a DP, anybody, any of those departments, sound department, don't give up. Stick to your guns. Just keep fighting. Just keep going. Rough it out. You may be eating ramen or whatever for a few months in between shows, but there is a payoff, and the payoff is your experience, your time in the industry, and looking back and reflecting on all the things that you have done in the industry, and really just going, you know what, I've had a really good run. I've enjoyed all the shows I've done. I've had a good time. I've also inspired others, because that's what we do. We inspire others. People will watch me work on set. People will watch Christine and Adam watch you guys on set doing what you do and having a good time doing it, or really just like being a pro, and wow, and people watching you going, wow, that person really knows what they're doing, and they do it so well. They look great at doing their job. Just don't give up. Always just keep pursuing your job. Just keep pursuing your passion, and just never give up. It's going to get hard. Yes, I will say it straight up. It's going to get hard. It's going to get shitty. It's going to suck at times, but there is a reward, and the reward is getting the next show, getting hired on the next show, and always look back at your career. Just go, oh, wow, that's where I was last year. Look at where I am now. And then a year from then, you're going to be even further in your career. So it always gets better and better and better. Just never give up and just keep going.
That is fantastic, and I agree, and that's why I like doing this podcast with Adam, because I personally like listening to the other episodes we've done in the past to see like where the fuck were we when we did this, and it's fun to be like, wow, like even the quality of our podcast is getting better, and the people that we have on, they're so cool, and yes, I never give up is exactly what people need to hear, especially right now. In the last few months. It has been
Cool.
tough for
Yeah.
everybody in the industry.
Very tough.
So, but yes, remember,
It's
this is the Get
it's that
Realisms
time, ladies and gentlemen.
podcast.
GetRealisms.com. Pick up your books.
Yes.
Pick up your hats,
Guns will
and
get a
get yourself tees
Yes.
like these at the
Or if you have kids,
GetRealisms.com.
start them off early.
That's right,
If
ladies
you
and
have
gentlemen.
Merch and merch, I love it. That's great.
Merchandising,
yes,
you know?
yes. Merchandising, yes, marketing.
We
But yeah, Glenn,
we love having you here, Glenn. Thank you so much for coming in here.
you.
Please come back maybe in a year from now and look
Sure.
back
We'll
at
look
like
back. Yeah,
of all the things.
next time it'll be Glenn directing a lot and just talking about
Yeah.
directing and everything.
Yeah, well,
That'd be cool. That would be
You're
really
right.
cool.
All
So
right,
yeah, thank
ladies
you
and
so much.
thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, follow us, and we will see you guys next time.